Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we will be comparing mobile warfare, superior firepower and grand battle plan to determine which doctrine is best for your armored divisions. Although this comparison will primarily concern a single player, I will also mention the most important differences when it comes to multiplayer. We will go through all of the advantages and disadvantages of each choice, comparing the results in a unique testing scenario. If that sounds interesting, then this is the right video for you. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask in the comments and to join our Discord to meet our amazing community. Of course guys, if you enjoy the content I make, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing and leaving me a comment. First of all though, as usual, let me give you a quick answer in case you're in a hurry. All the doctrines tested actually performed very well and proved to be absolutely viable in single player. However, mobile warfare outperformed its rivals in a few key aspects. For this comparison I made a spreadsheet including all details and results. We're going to check it together now, but keep in mind that this will be included in the shared folder for tier 2 members of the channel, so feel free to give it a look if you're interested. Before we get into the numbers, however, let me explain a bit more about the testing scenario and why it was chosen. In these kind of videos you usually find artificially set scenarios in which a given number of divisions face each other with different doctrines to determine which one is more effective. Naturally, this is totally fine, and it has the advantage of removing the human factor as well as RNG from the equation. However, what people fail to account for with this on-paper testing is the complexity of a real scenario. For example, army experience is usually limited. How many doctrines can you realistically get by the beginning of the war? Do you have air superiority? Do you have enough supplies? Are you always able to get full planning? Does the extra speed allow you to end the war faster or to encircle more enemy divisions? Many of these factors are simply completely ignored in those tests. And the funny thing is that, more often than not, those aspects actually have a bigger impact on your runs than the perks themselves. In short, in my opinion, the best way to really test doctrines is in a concrete and real scenario. And that's why, for this testing, I used my run as the Soviet Union. In this run we are fighting an early war with the Axis for a 1940 reverse Barbarossa. I thought this run was perfect for the testing scenario as it involves a bit of everything. For example, we start with contested air, but over the course of the war we gain full air superiority. We carry on all pushes only with our armored divisions. At the same time, we have a big front that we need to protect with our infantry divisions. And we end up fighting and pushing in most types of terrains. Sometimes with full planning, sometimes in a hurry. For this run we used this tank design and this armored template. As for what concerns our defending infantry divisions, we kept the default Soviet template. The key points of the war involve a first push into the German-occupied Poland with the consequent encirclement, a second massive encirclement along the entire front, and the following third one along the border with Hungary and Romania. This is an interesting one because mobile warfare allowed me to get this consistently before Hungary and Romania joined the Axis. While this was a lot less consistent with superior firepower and grand battleplan, meaning sometimes this last encirclement here would not work. We then pushed all the way up to Danzig to cut off the Germans for another encirclement, before a final push into Western Germany to end the war. I will include a link to this run in the description of the video, so you can check it out in detail if you're interested. The main advantage of this testing method is that it is as real as it gets. Now this is not about the best doctrines in theory, it's about the best doctrines in practice. Of course, at the same time, the disadvantage is that RNG inevitably plays a role in it, and well, I play a role in it. And over a long war, there are higher chances that I make a mistake and affect the final results. That being said, let's get into some numbers. I tested two different scenarios. The first one is a realistic representation of what I had available at that point of the run. 2 spirits and 4 doctrines. This also included up to 6 doctrines by the end of the war, so I unlocked them as I got more army experience. Something worth mentioning here is that thanks to motorization drive, with mobile warfare I was able to save about 100 army experience when designing my tanks and armored divisions, which technically should have resulted in 1 less doctrine available for superior firepower and grand battleplan. However, for this comparison I decided to give 4 doctrines to superior firepower and grand battleplan to start exactly at the same point. Another thing to note is that I originally intended to only battle plan and use spearheads to remove the human factor a little bit. However, unfortunately, as you probably know, in the current state of the game, spearheads are broken, so I had to micromanage from time to time. Now here on the document you can see, highlighted in yellow, what I consider to be the most relevant stats for tanks from each doctrine. Of course, we're not going to mention all of them now, but you can check the document by yourself if you're interested. What we're going to do is we're going to check the key points. So for what concerns mobile warfare, as you can see, we have the highest speed, the highest breakthrough, the highest tank and motorized organization, the highest planning speed, and the best tactic in the form of breakthrough. Another positive is that every single perk benefits tanks, and that, as I mentioned, motorization drive saves about 100 army experience. On the minus side, there are no buffs to base or max attack, both in terms of soft and hard attack, and there are no significant buffs for infantry. Infantry actually plays an important role, we'll talk about it a bit later. When it comes to superior firepower, well, superior firepower offers the highest base soft attack. It overall offers balanced stats, since support companies really benefit all of our divisions. On the minus side, we have few tank-specific buffs, and we have no buffs to movement speed or to planning speed. When it comes to Grand Battleplan, we have amazing max planning buffs, of course. We have the best spirit, in my opinion, in the form of logistical focus. We have solid buffs to tanks, as well as to infantry and motorized, and we also have some great early defensive buffs, especially the entrenchment bonus, which ended up playing an important role in this run, but we'll talk about it later. On the minus, again, we have no buffs to movement or planning speed. We have a mediocre early tactic in a well-planned attack, and max planning is not always guaranteed. It depends on several factors, including spy networks, how fast you intend to push, and being under attack at certain points of the run. Now, as we go back and give a look at the results, do keep in mind that these are average results over several runs. So I tried to reduce the RNG as much as possible by testing them over and over and over again. These are the results for the first scenario, so only 4 doctrines and up to 6 by the end of the war. And as you can see here, Mobile Warfare and Grand Battleplan basically evenly matched each other in terms of casualties. Mobile Warfare was also the fastest at capitulating Germany, taking only an average of 221 days, followed by Grand Battleplan, 10% more, 245 days, and finally Superior Firepower, which struggled a little bit in this first scenario, both in terms of days to capitulate Germany, as well as in terms of casualties. In the second scenario, I decided to unlock all perks for all doctrines, and here the final results are a little bit harder to read, as overall, all doctrines performed extremely well. Now, before we get to the conclusions, let me quickly comment on them. Starting with Mobile Warfare. In my opinion, Mobile Warfare is the best doctrines when it comes to tanks. However, the main issue with that is that there is no pure tank army, and the buffs to infantry are pretty weak, especially defensively. So the more you rely on your tanks, the better results you will get with Mobile Warfare. The more you need to use infantry, the better the results with Grand Battleplan or Superior Firepower. Now, it must be noted that Mobile Warfare is the best doctrine at defeating the AI quickly, which arguably is more important than some of the other factors. Talking about Superior Firepower. Now, as you know, I love Superior Firepower. It was my favorite doctrine for infantry divisions, and I find it to be always a very well-rounded choice. When it comes to tanks, however, despite offering the highest base soft attack, it takes a bit longer to match Mobile Warfare and Grand Battleplan. Now, Superior Firepower shines with small divisions stuffed with support companies. So I feel like large armored divisions are not exactly what it is made for. As for Grand Battleplan, well, Grand Battleplan is always a fantastic choice. Max planning means potentially insane stats. The extra entrenchment right away means easier defending. The logistical focus means less attrition, and it is overall more balanced than Mobile Warfare. Now, with a few speed buffs, I would have no doubts, and I would say that Grand Battleplan is the best doctrine here. But without them, well, Mobile Warfare does indeed push the AI faster. Now let's get to some conclusions here. First of all, once again, I'm positively surprised by how well balanced all doctrines are. Keep in mind that with either option, we were able to easily defeat Germany within 1 year and with very low casualties. Mobile Warfare performed very well both in the first and second scenario, as I expected, being a tank-oriented doctrine. On the other hand, Superior Firepower underperformed my expectations a little bit in the first scenario, I must say mostly because of the lack of speed, so the war took longer and consequently we also took more casualties. At the same time, Grand Battleplan outperformed my expectations, surprisingly almost matching Mobile Warfare even in terms of speed and days to capitulate Germany. Now I think there are a few reasons for that which are worth mentioning. Now first of all, the additional speed from Mobile Warfare was great at getting encirclements, but sometimes it can also be a little tricky. First of all, also because of the higher speed, my tanks ended up out of supplies more often with Mobile Warfare than they did with Grand Battleplan. The supply reduction from the Spirit in Grand Battleplan also really helped, keeping my tanks always at full strength and reducing attrition. Moreover, the additional max planning from Grand Battleplan ensured that each push, while a bit slower, was always successful. Lastly, but probably most importantly, the extra entrenchment on our infantry divisions made the AI less likely to attack us when using Grand Battleplan. Hence why Grand Battleplan ended up with lower casualties than Mobile Warfare, despite being at war for about 1 month longer. That being said, careful with numbers because numbers do not tell everything. First of all, let's consider that casualties were very low in all runs, especially with all doctrines unlocked. And with such low casualties, RNG inevitably plays a bigger role. A few divisions caught off guard at the border with Romania, a good force concentration from the AI, and there are your 30-40,000 casualties. So the days to end a war are probably a better indicator, and potentially ones that makes a bigger difference in your run as well. After all, ending the war a couple of months earlier is more important than taking 20,000 less casualties. And this is where Mobile Warfare gave the best results and overall felt better to play. Think about it this way. Higher stats from superior firepower or from the planning in Grand Battleplan ensure that you win your offensives, but they don't make them any faster. If that's an offensive that you would have won without those extra stats, well then they don't do much. And since our armor divisions are so good, they always push, no matter what. And with Mobile Warfare, they do it faster. Let's take another example, the extra planning from Grand Battleplan. Well, there are situations in which waiting for the extra planning is simply not worth it. Here, for example, after the first encirclement, these units are already without supplies, we can just push them right away. Getting in position and waiting for planning would not be the best course of action. Mobile Warfare, which we're using here, doesn't give any extra planning, but it gives you planning a lot faster. Meaning you often end up pushing with higher planning when using Mobile Warfare than when using Grand Battleplan. And again, the extra speed makes it possible to close encirclements that you would not have been able to close and to encircle more units into them. Naturally, everything we just said would be quite different in a multiplayer scenario, in which having higher stats than your opponent is particularly important. So in such a situation, Grand Battleplan is much more likely to be the best choice, since max planning grants you potentially the highest stats. Finally, one could easily argue that since Grand Battleplan almost matched Mobile Warfare even when talking about tanks, and it is overall clearly a better doctrine for everything else, from the defensive bonuses to entrenchment, to the max potential planning, to the supply consumption through the Spirit, and the great synergy it has with special forces, which are incredibly good right now, well then, Grand Battleplan is clearly the better doctrine. I won't argue with that, that's probably the case. But if you plan on using mainly armored divisions, do yourself a favor and try out a full Mobile Warfare run. It is guaranteed to be incredibly effective and a lot of fun. Nothing is as satisfying as seeing massive encirclements being completely destroyed by your tanks. This run and this testing scenario was one of the most fun I've had in a while. I mean, look at this. If this is not fun, then what is? But more importantly, guys, always keep an open mind when it comes to the meta. What works best for pro players might not be what works best for you. Don't let anyone tell you how to play. Go out there, experiment, and have fun. After all, if we all played the same way, nobody would ever discover the new meta. And with that, that's really all for today's video. If you found it useful, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving me a comment. Please let me know what you thought about this comparison, if you agree or not. And also I'm very curious to hear which is your favorite doctrine when it comes to tanks. Other than that, guys, thank you all for watching as usual, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye bye.